past the hour, 7 o'clock, and you are still tuned in to the General Public Affair. My name is Linda Khumalo, and as you know, as per tradition on the General Public Affair, it is Assassination Monday, because if you assassinate Monday, you've got the rest of the week hostage. But yes, conversations continue. So guys, I'd like to know, what's your view of the Freedom Charter? Because we've got a beautiful document called the Freedom Charter, but when I look at reality myself, when I look at society, and look at the demographics, I don't see the reality of this document. So I'd like to know, what's your take? Because it says the people shall govern. That's the first thing on the Freedom Charter. So I don't know, what's your take?
For me, the Freedom Charter, beautiful as it may be, when they wrote the Constitution, they incorporated some sections of the Freedom Charter. But then where it matters the most, the property clause, there was a huge compromise there. I mean, how can we continue to maintain the systems of apartheid to say, you know, landowners, you have to pay them? But did they pay for the land where they took the land? So for me, I have a problem with the property clause, really, because it's a betrayal of the Freedom Charter. It took away the essence of the Freedom Charter.
So basically what you're saying is the land was taken corruptly.
Yes.
And now the way things are unfolding, it's very unjust, if I may say.
For me, the Constitution, what it just did was to say, okay guys, we're now moving into democratic South Africa. What you have is yours, and you can protect it by using this Constitution. Whoever wants to take it away from you must then, you know, pay for it. But they didn't pay for it when they took that land. They forcefully removed people. So now we, post-apartheid South Africa right now, you have people who are still dislocated, who don't have access to land, and you know, the economy is different, and people continue to live in poverty. So for me, I feel like it's a huge betrayal that property clause is there, because it's an unfair system that continues to be, you know, to be propelled by this Constitution.
But do you think there are ways of sort of like changing the system?
There is a way. Recently, government had an option they could have voted to change the Constitution and change that clause, but because it's the EFF that put the motion in Parliament, ANC decided not to vote for it. And obviously the DA is against land expropriation without compensation. That's a fact. So there is a way of changing the law, but then obviously people are uncomfortable with, you know, changing what the system is right now.
And Ebenhaezer, it seems like you really had something to say. So what's your take on
No, I just find it hilarious, because like now, and I should probably find a better source. I feel so bad being with academics. I'm about to cite Wikipedia. I'm sorry, guys.
Everybody reads Wikipedia.
But I find it hilarious that even in here, this isn't the history of it. Now, this is like the first page before we even get to the tenets. It says on February 11, 1990, Mandela was finally freed, and in May 1994, the ANC came to power. The new Constitution of South Africa included many of the demands of the Freedom Charter. It addressed directly nearly all demands for equality of race and language, but made no reference to nationalization of industry or distribution of land, which are outlined in the charter. So this is like international knowledge. And what's crazy for me in that regard is that, like, my father tells this impassioned story about people that he knew, you know, and they'd have to go and collect their bodies. People who, and it's hidden, you don't know, it's not in history, that people would go, and before they go up to Royal Tanzania or Angola to go trade from Khethu and Ebenhaezer, you'd go through the border at Mozambique. And over there, they would beat you within an inch of your life and make you admit if you're in pimp. So we're gonna let you go, just tell us. And you just imagine someone with his last breath, and they would beat them, and some people died, not even being enemies of freedom. And they died, and they told their children that, you see this charter, that is what we're fighting for, that is going to be a reality. And never mind that decolonization, I'm talking about equal and free education. Have we built fields in the hood, in house schools? House schools, they plant sand. You know, have we extracurricular activities? Have we tried to make provision for that? These people have no other space. It's an angry space. What's Sarafina, guys?
Yes.
Schools are still like this. Schools are like that now.
Because it says the doors of learning and of culture shall be opened. Are they really open?
No, they're not. Part of the biggest sellout was the fact that everyone thought that you could have today be an apartheid state that was on the brink of collapse, and then the following day everyone is hugging, and people are children of different races are hugging, as if that was the biggest problem for race relations in South Africa, was that not enough children from different races were hugging. But it was the fact that white South Africans had a specific view on black people, the view that sort of still informs judges and prosecutors till today, that means you, as a black person, you cannot really ever get a fair trial. And there's no way people can be equal when they don't have equal rights. I mean, when the apartheid system decided to be full on against black people, what did they do? They took people's dignity, they took people's land with the 1913 Land Act. That act made it so that any system in South Africa that comes in and says we are going to be equal has to first go back to that act and say, okay, we need to fix everything that was done here. Because you cannot tell me that I am equal to a child who's grown up in Sandton and went to a private school that costs over 100 and something thousand, and I'm coming from the rural area where like 30,000 is like balling for me. Like paying a school fees of 40,000. That's like mortgaging your family home. Like if you guys have one, you know, if you have a home in a good part of the suburb. So, you know, something like that, we can never be equal. And, you know, someone actually said this recently that, you know, for black people, there's no way you can go in the world where you're not black. Like Indian people, they can go to India and they can be a first-class citizen. Colored people can go anywhere in the world where there's a sort of a racial integration and they become people who are aesthetically pleasing. But as a black person, you go to China, you go to Mozambique, everywhere, you are black. So that's a problem for black people, is that people think, oh yes, we are in a freedom state, we're in a freedom world, but we're not. As black people, as soon as people see you, there's something that informs them of who you are, of what your aspirations should be, and your place should be in society.
And it's sad because the only like nice place in inverted commas that a black man can go to is Germany, and that's just for German booty. No money. I'm sorry. That's the nicest experience.
Okay.
That's for land, not booty, but land I want to mention.
Yeah, when it comes to land, I'd like to know, because do you feel like our government has failed us? Because I also feel like that what has been happening in apartheid times in terms of dislocation is still happening now, because the very people that came into government are people that came from what we call the ghettos or ekasi. And these were sort of like labor sending camps, labor sending areas. Yeah. And then we got the freedom, they came into power, but when they did the RDP system, they kept on making labor sending areas, areas that have no infrastructure, no development whatsoever. Like, as you're saying, a child from Diepsloot and a child from Sandton won't have the same education, which also gives rise to a question of our education system. So I don't know what's your take on that.
Man, you know what, man? I'm going to Cape Town on Wednesday. And like I think like the city of Cape Town aesthetically, it's a pretty dope city. If it lived in the European areas, I'm sure it can compete.
Yeah, it's very, very Britain.
Very nice. But dude, the reality is this: when I fly in on Wednesday, I'm gonna fly over shacks, and 100 meters away from those shacks will be a multi-billion-dollar square mile. I don't know how big airports are, square 2 kilometers, whatever. It's bringing in billions, and there are shacks, 10 houses, my guy. When you drive down the highway going into the city of Cape Town, they've raised these 3-story RDPs against the highway like this. And if you look through the cracks, you still see shacks behind it. And these people, they wanted to give them electricity. They put one pole here and they just toss it to different shacks. You just see wires and wires going to different shacks. You know how dangerous that is, man. People are living in a time. Nothing has changed. You understand? Like I've had like 2 conversations with old people saying it was better because we had jobs, even though the only jobs they could access were nursing and mining, whatever. Do you understand? What has changed? Nothing for them.
It was informal labor that was like sort of like dominant.
The only difference is that they can't even access those jobs. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They're only allowed to do them then, but they had access to them. Now they can't even access those particular jobs. And I've heard old people say,
So
okay, let me give you a chance to
okay, what I think that the worst thing that apartheid or colonization did to black people is to believe that, or even right now, the issue of the land question. Right now in South Africa, they always scare South Africans by bringing the Zimbabwean question to say, look at what the land reform has done in Zimbabwe. Do you want that to happen in South Africa? You know, it's so sad because the youth, some tend to buy into that, but you know, we know that system in Zimbabwe, what happened in Zimbabwe was, you know, it was manufactured. It was not only because the Zimbabwean government decided to take the land back.
There were sanctions.
Yes, there were sanctions that came into play. So really, I think that as long as the South African government continues to maintain their policy of land expropriation with compensation, people are going to continue to be dislocated because it will never work. That's a fact. South Africans will continue to live the lives that they live right now. And Van Wyk will continue to own 12,000 hectares of land and feel like if you want land, you have to buy it from me. But who did he buy it from? You understand? So I think that this country will be a rainbow nation when people are willing to share the resources of this country with everybody.
But are the system in place in order to reverse this current system in terms of land reform program?
The current system's in place. Government has to buy the property from the farmer and then bring in a black farmer to come and make use of that land. But that system is not working because they cannot afford to do that.
So do you think there's a model that can come about where we'll be getting this land without compensating for it? Well, because that has to happen, because that's the justice that we need.
Yes, first thing first, we have to have a land cap. Capping off of land. There is no way a farmer can own a land that is as big as the Auckland Park area. That should be something that is immediately shut down in South Africa. That should be something that we're not polite about. It's something that is going and being done, that we are measuring of land, firstly. So we're not saying we're taking all the land. We're taking most of it, and we're redistributing it. And that's another part where we have to be really critical, is how then do we redistribute this land afterwards? Because we don't want a case of what happened in South Africa post-apartheid, where the Ramaphosas become the Ramaphosas, and then the Xabas become, the Xabas, No, we need more. We need more for everyday South Africans, not just South Africans who have a connection.
Because the land is still not being shared, because it says the land shall be shared among those who work it. Yes. But those who work it,
they continue to
work it. But the people we are asking to share, the people who are asking to get us a share, are people who are living, who are ministers who are living in 15 million rand homes. Of course, they're not going to be worried about you and sharing with you, because why? Capitalism works to separate a class, a race. That's the fundamentals of it. It makes it so that you become a better version of your identity so that you can function. Because the apartheid will say, okay, you know what, you are this impassionate person who wants to fight for rights. Let's give you a job. Let's give you debt. Let's give you aspirations of of German engineered cars, of beautiful interiors, of traveling first class. And as soon as that starts happening, it dislocates you from the suffering of people. You start to think, you know what, actually these people are impinging on this wealth that shouldn't be shared amongst people. And actually, there's a lot of wealth. Africa is full of wealth. Africa is full of wealth, and the one thing we don't realize is that an African unit of trade and distribution would actually bring the world to its feet. Like, it would bring them to their knees, because as soon as, with what Princess was talking about in Zimbabwe, those sanctions can happen because of debts to world banks and all these things. But as soon as a united African continent, we can say, okay, you know what, we're just going to trade amongst each other. We have all this diamond, we have all this gold. In fact, we can even throw it out into the rivers if we want. We don't have to make necklaces because we don't want them if we don't want them. But the fact that everything is owned and we allow the ownership to continue because we're afraid of sanctions, yes, that is problematic for us.
And your take, Ebenhaezer?
Yo, man, I got excited. Yeah, it's really ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to bring in things that are not based on what people are sure of, but what happened in Qatar, for instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
let's talk.
Yeah, man.
That's very
sneaky. That's very sneaky. You know what I'm talking about? And we've got 1,000 stories. A lot of stories like this thing about the lost children. Not Boko Haram. Give that guy Joseph Kony. That guy is in a small space. America's just trying to use it to enter the space. You can actually read on it. Those are actually facts. Even the government itself is just like, that guy was bought. The president was bought, so he made it look like a big thing. America's wanting to enter Uganda, I believe it was. Anyway, there's a lot of space where we can see it happening over and over again. Aid coming as aid, but really extracting so much from the place. How is it that we still owe?
Colonial debt?
Colonial debt. What is that?
Yeah, what's colonial debt really? After people
after rape, after theft, after murder. What debt is there? In fact, we should be saying, you know what, dude, we'll call it quits, relax. Chill. No, we chill. We forgive you.
No calling it quits. Calling it quits is the worst thing you do in capital system. You have to manifest the debt in capitalism.
Because you're right. Guys,
I'm talking about as in leave us alone.
Africa has everything because you don't really need them. Because they come here with their colored paper and take our resources. America has what? They don't really have nothing. They just have the dollar, the green dollar.
It's on the web. The money is on the
Somewhere in the
It's
air.
hypothetical
Yeah.
money.
And when you look at how everyone who sort of tried to do anything to unify Africa, you look at people like your Thomas Sankara, you look at Petrus Lumumba. I mean, a sudden assassination and
Or they're demonized.
yes, you look at Biko, people who are saying, "No, wake up, Africa! Like we do not need."
the likes of Robert Sobukwe.
Yes.
So I'd like to know from your perspective, what do you think was the main purpose of apartheid? Because I think we have to understand that and what it did to us in order to reverse everything.
For me, apartheid was meant to divide and conquer, make the black man in South Africa feel like he's the other in the African continent. Within themselves, they're divided as South Africans, and within Africa, they're divided. So it's meant to separate us so that we don't work as a unit, because once Africa starts working as a unit, then there's going to be progress. So apartheid took away who we are, our existence, our culture, our blackness, loving ourselves as black people,
Yeah.
Yes. After they took away that, our ideas of beauty, everything, it made us feel like we had no education of some sort. And I'd like to bring this up. Yesterday on the news, one ANC guy was like, it's time for the ANC to get leadership from someone who's not in the ANC, someone with a level of education. So in my head, I was like, he means Western education. He means university education. Since when do we measure good leadership, good leaders by the level of your education? I believe that some people are born to be leaders. You don't have to have a university degree. And I believe that leadership is not only about, I believe that you've got people around you that make you a good leader. So those ideas are all Western ideas that are drummed into us to want to aspire to reach a certain level. There is Donald Trump. Doesn't have any experience, but he's not the president.
So, but now when it comes to education, that's a good question, because is education a qualification? Because I believe that there are a whole lot of people with qualifications out there, but they're not really educated, because there's a huge distinction between education and a qualification, and education and academics, because there's a academical education, because I believe that education is beyond academics or academia.
Like in our society, when people refer to education, they refer to qualification. So that's the problem where we are at. Like back in the days where they would pass down information from one generation to the other by word of mouth. That in itself was a form of education, because we were able to coexist as people, to preserve. We're able to live longer, but now we don't have that, because we look at African things and African history, whatever that is, because we didn't write it anyway. We look at that and be like, no, we want to aspire to be Western, because everything Western is beautiful. Everything Western is progress, really.
It's really sad, man, and that's why there's a big move and a big conversation. One of the African insights is about decolonizing knowledge itself. Knowledge, not mind education systems. Just the idea that from a Western perspective, we have to come out of that space, because then it's going to rule us.
Yeah, still, how does West define East?
Yes, exactly. But here's the worst thing about it, like, for instance, it's even affected how we interact with each other. Right now, a lady can be beaten up or even raped at the taxi rank because her top reveals her cleavage too much. Right? When we were from a space where the way we didn't, sex was not on our mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We used to walk topless and half the ass was out. It was a nice time, but you see, for my sexist,
yeah, that was African.
my sexist. Everything is so. You know what I'm saying? Does it make sense? I don't compare with those sentences, but it's just like,
it makes
how
sense.
crazy is that?
It was to cover the black body.
Nzulu.
Yeah.
Nzulu will go and say to a lady that's naked when they go when they go home and what you call it, and they'll see the king shoes from topless ladies.
Yeah, at the re-dance,
and crap on, or even at Maswatini, they'll go and crap on a woman because they feel she's not dressed.
Yeah.
She's not covering enough.
It's because of Western ideology.
Yes.
Just like xenophobia. There's no direct translation of the word xenophobia in any African language, but only a translation of the definition, not the word. What is xenophobia in Zulu? What is xenophobia in Pedi? I don't think there is a word. So I believe
xenophobia.
It should be redefined as blacks killing blacks.
Yeah.
Because that's a reality. Because foreigners of lighter shade in the country are not affected by xenophobia attacks when they erupt.
Have you realized how foreigners, light-skinned or white-skinned foreigners, are not really deemed as foreigners in Africa?
Exactly.
And then when they say foreigners, they mean Zimbabwean, they mean Nigerian, they mean Congolese. How sad is that? How can I be a foreigner on the African continent?
Exactly.
Like,
and then
how
people
did that
calling people
happen?
Korekores. You can call another person, so this is Korekore Africa.
Yes.
Because these are colonial borders.
Yes.
Who created these borders?
We hold on to them steadfastly. Yeah?
Yes.
And that's why patriotism right now is actually, that's why black consciousness has become a greater conversation, because patriotism, especially as a South African, is the worst thing to be. To be a patriotic South African, that is a very stupid notion. You know what I'm talking about? To be proud of what heritage, what space? Because first of all, how can I be proud of something that has been created by a Western
apartheid era
colonizer? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, sorry, that was me criticizing patriotism. So.
Because, I mean, what you have to think about, the big bad wolf in all of this is white capital. White capital, I mean, its enemies are things like culture and patriotism, because those things would make sort of individualism and individual greed sort of irrelevant.
Okay.
And those are the tenets that are most important for capitalism. Because for capitalism, when you get promoted out of a group in a bunch of workers, they're not promoting you to make your life better. They're promoting you to remove you from this group that you belong to. And you know, my father used to teach us capitalism in this way of like, imagine a bunch of people in the back of a lorry. So the lorry is traveling. People are complaining about the conditions, the wind, the temperature. They can't eat, all these things. What does management do? They take one of these people and make them the driver. And this person now as the driver, you as the people behind, you are backing this person because you're saying one of us is getting there. But this person now becomes a driver, and now becoming a driver has its own responsibilities, and those responsibilities are removed from you in the back. So now this person has to protect this position by selling you out. So that now, when it's time to get someone else when there's more dissension, it's taking this driver, moving him up to being a supervisor, calling someone else to come in to be a driver. That's how capitalism works. It keeps recycling, and we all fall into that trap, because as soon as you get a job as a person, you get a job, you have debt. Like, you know, your first month of a paycheck is the first time you can fool your debt. Second month, your debt knows exactly how much you're getting, exactly where to get it. So capitalism works in that way. So all these luxuries we live in, we have to, if we ever want to overthrow capitalism, we have to start divorcing ourselves from beautiful phones, from convenience of cars. Because if we are saying we want a revolution, we have to understand what a revolution would mean. A revolution would mean that the woman at Pick and Pay who wakes up at 4 o'clock to bake your bread, she's going to be in the lines with you picketing. And you're not going to have bread. Because no one is going to be there to make the bread. You have to know that the guy who works at the petrol station is not going to be there to pump your gas. So you're going to have to walk to the struggle and walk back home. So, you know, it's very easy to romanticize revolutions in thinking that, oh, we're just going to topple the system. No, we're going to have to be practical in knowing that the lady who wakes up at 4 o'clock has as much right as me as an academic to be every day here and be fighting this cause.
I also think as academics or people in academia, economic sciences should answer the question of why, when Africa has all these goals and reserves, but when we look at our global currencies, our African currencies are weaker than Western currencies, and yet we have all these resources.
It's stolen. They own it. The Queen, according to Louis Madinga, see, most of my facts come from comedy, comedy and Wikipedia. But the Queen owns a sixth of the land on Earth. A sixth. This is like a hypothetical thing, but it's not very difficult to believe. If New Zealand is still under the Commonwealth, if Australia is still under the Commonwealth, if Samoa, although they're independent, still basically has a lot of its natural resources owned. Africa, we still play in the Commonwealth Games, not because of nothing. We still pledge allegiance. Where's the Star of the Star of Africa? They call it the Star of Africa. The jewel of that jewel, the diamond. It's in one of the most expensive pieces of jewelry out there. Those things are rocks here, bro. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's why I love the whole idea of even tossing into the sea, because those things are rocks here. It's just based off our cattle and of crops and cattle. We could topple over the whole economy.
Okay, so in closing, let me just give Princess a chance before we close.
I may be criticized for saying this, but I believe that academics have never solved any problem when it comes to a revolution. I believe that academics are lukewarm. you have to look at, let's just look at the current situation in South Africa right now. And we look at how people are aligning themselves with the narrative, the state capture narrative. No one dares to question the current narrative of why state capture is the current focus. I mean, Guptas are not really capturing 96% of the economy. By saying this, I'm not saying I'm pro-state capture. I'm just saying I have a problem with the narrative, and I have a problem with everybody rallying behind that narrative. And for me, it shows me that academics are very lukewarm. They go where the money is aligned, So for us to look to academics and say, why are they not solving this problem? I don't think academics are good at solving problems. They're good at writing papers, identifying problems, but not providing the solutions or standing up for a cause that's a revolution, or they words like radical economic transformation. Already people are like, what does that mean? You understand? But it means simple. It's simple, really. It means that can we have a life where people don't suffer from abject poverty because 96% of the economy is owned by a limited few. But somehow we have to break down what radical economic transformation means.
Basically, we haven't inherited the economy.
Yes.
There's no economic inheritance.
Yes.
So in closing, I'd like to know from all three of you, what is your definition of decolonization before we wrap up the show?
Decolonization for me, simple analogy. It's what we do in the bathroom every day when you're done flushing everything. That's what we need to do. We need to flush everything and scrub everything because there's too many areas that are problematic. And as Princess was saying, I mean, academics thrive with problems. Like they need problems in society for us to be academics. I need people to be disembogulated from their identity for me to have a job, for me to have something to say. So yes, I don't want people who are fully realizing that. So yeah.
Wow, decolonization. Honestly, I'm still trying to find out what that's all about. I think it's a process. We're still trying to establish what decolonization of the curriculum means, but essentially it also means not just adding a few black authors and then we say we have decolonized. It means we have to have an education system that's reflective of all the knowledge that Africa has to show. You understand? Yeah.
Ebenhaezer?
I just want to say to any of my white employers listening, it's not just the PR stunt. I'm joking. No, man, for me, ideologically, obviously, it's distancing value from the idea of whiteness in our space.
Yeah.
And so whatever the color or whatever represents colonization or oppression, is distancing wealth, worth, value from that space. And sometimes it will take long, so maybe we'll have to toss it out into the field and go and now like I like the flashing. We might have to now go and reevaluate and maybe create it for ourselves and chase it again, But decolonization is removing the power of the oppressor.
Yeah.
From everything, from ideology, from philosophy, from the physical world. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere where he controls, it's problematic.
Okay, that's it for tonight from African Insight, and thanks for tuning in. But for now, good music, good vibes coming your way, and we're about to get into Classic Generation with the Classic Generation team. And tonight we are talking ways of boosting your online sales as an entrepreneur. But for now, good music, good vibes.
And